Namaste and welcome. My name is Louisa and I'm here today with the sacred teaching that has come to me in the last few days and nights. And I honour this teaching today by creating a sacred space with which to teach in a forest on the earth, and adorned a little differently to my normal video garb. I have opened the sacred space here this morning with prayers and candles and smudging of the sacred medicines in my smudge wand, and with the beautiful sound of the crystal bowl, the singing bowl. And I will drum a bit later at the end of this video to close this teaching. And the reason I'm being reverent today, let's just say, and I have adorned myself with red ochre from this land. The reason for this is because the teaching I have is a sacred teaching about connection to the earth. And when we connect to the earth, we connect to the elements of the earth. We connect to the air, the element of air and fire, as depicted by the smudge wand and the candle. And we connect also to the element of air via sound, a powerful sound. What you're witnessing today is more of a naked offering for me. And I say naked because I'm exposing how I am with spirit. And I don't want you to look at what I'm doing with the smudge wand or the ochre or the singing bowl and take it as the trappings of ritual, a show for you. It's definitely not a show for you. I've been called this morning to teach in a deeper way than I normally do, which is to set up this sacred space and to show you how I do it, even though I haven't shown you the whole thing, but just to give you a glimpse into the world that I create. When I meditate, when I speak to ancestors and guardians and spirits, when I speak to the earth, when I'm in private ceremony, and I know so little. I just want to be humble and clear about that while it might look like the trappings of ritual, as I said before, doing things just because they look spiritual. Everything that I do has a personal significance, and I have a relationship with it. So I've formed a relationship with my rituals, with my using of my smudge stick. I make the smudge stick myself from the plants that I find on the land. The ochre I have harvested myself. And there are other things as well that are personal and deep. The colours are important too. The red today is for the blood and the mud of earth, because that's what I want to talk about, the blood and the mud of earth, and our deep relationship with earth, as deep as it can be. So the teaching came in what I call a night journey, and when I experience these, I wake up in the middle of the night and I receive a lot of teaching, I guess, a lot of insight. Sometimes it's uncomfortable because I have to look at myself and my own flaws. And what I want to say too, before I go further with that, is that these acts of ceremony, right? We are all on the planet exploring our way back home to spirit, great spirit, or God. One can call it either the cosmos, the prime creator source. We're all on our journey home to that which created us, that where we come from. And so on this planet we've been very disconnected from source and our home base, if you like, our home frequency, and also disconnected to all the knowledge that comes from those realms. So we're all sort of fumbling around in the dark to some extent, figuring out how to reconnect to spirit, how to reconnect to the earth and to the cosmos. And these things like the smudging and the singing bowls and the toning and the light language and all of the things that you probably started to notice are becoming more commonplace, right? We sometimes call them shamanic, but I will speak about shamanism in a minute because it deserves some unpacking. But we are often calling them shamanic. All of these things are tools to activate the remembrance within us. And I feel like a spiritual child playing with spiritual toys. But I know that I have to keep trying, keep learning, keep participating in my own spiritual growth. So, I encourage you to try these things for yourself if you aren't already, and to just experiment. Go with a feeling of joy and playfulness as you do so, and you'll find things that really work for you and really resonate. Okay, so the night journey that I had, there's been a question floating around in my brain now for a while that I feel was answered last night, and that's what I want to share with you today. So my question was complex. I'm going to have to explain my question so you understand and hopefully can relate. I felt that, what's been going on for me in the last 6 months is I've been called to a deeper and deeper relationship with the earth and really embodying what it means to be a human being, really sinking deep into the experience of being present with my breath, present when I'm walking on the earth, natural inclinations to take off my shoes and walk barefoot, inclinations to bathe naked in natural waterways, communion with nature, with the sun. When I see the sun, years ago I just used to see the sun rising and like, okay, it's going to be a nice day. That was about the only thought I ever had. Or if I was hungover, no, don't want the sun. Right? This is the old me years ago. Now when I see the sun, there's this reverence that rises, greetings to you, Salbona Ilanga, I might say in the Zulu tongue. Hello sun, I see you. We see you. Me and all of my ancestors that stand behind me. And this is the reverence and the remembering of the sacred experience we're having on earth, our relationship to everything is sacred. And so it's naturally arising that this is becoming part of my everyday. And like everything in life, you get a glimpse, a taste of how beautiful that is, to have this sacred relationship with the earth. And then you want to go deeper, you want to deepen it and make it richer and more beautiful. So that desire in me to go deeper has led me to I guess you could say, let's just call it a path of shamanic practice. I'm not saying that I'm a shaman. That has to be made very clear. There is a lot of misperception about what an actual shaman is, and these terms get sort of thrown around a lot. My understanding is quite new, really. I've only really started to realize this since I've been on this path, is that people who are the true shamans, which is the healer, the person that heals via communication with the spirit world and is in service to that as their calling, right? So you can have people who can heal. Yes, there's many, many healers on the planet, but that doesn't mean they're shamans. And the shaman is the person that is initiated in the old ways. This is my understanding. There are shamanic practices in all the indigenous cultures, and there are shamans and medicine women. And those that often have to endure deep, deep suffering to be able to become so dissolve their ego to such an extent that they are then a vessel for the ancestral wisdom, knowledge, and frequencies to come through. Shamanic practices are those things that shamans often use to help them in those states, and those things are not exclusive to shamans. So smudging and the use of stones for divination, bones, drumming, all of these things that you will often think of as shamanic. They are tools of the shaman, but to use them does not make you a shaman. I hope that makes sense. I will talk about that at another time, maybe in more depth, because it's a really interesting subject to me at the moment anyway, as I embark on this deepening of my knowledge. Now, shamanism is part of a worldview which is known as animism. And if you look that up, you will see that animism is, some people will call it a religion. I mean, we're getting into semantics sometimes with words. It can cause a lot of problems because people, I think of a religion as, like a doctrine that is set out and a set of ritualistic practices that you have to follow, and a belief in this thing that everybody has the same belief. So for me to call animism a religion doesn't entirely work, but I have heard it being called a religion. I'll just say it's a spiritual worldview that the indigenous people hold, that the earth is, that the principal core of animism is that the earth is a sacred being and an alive, conscious and spiritual being in and of herself, Mother Gaia, and that everything in the earth realm is also sacred and conscious and alive. Everything is alive. That's what animism is about. The stick has a consciousness. The stick is alive. The stick is connected. And it's not just on a linear dimension in the earth plane connected to the tree or the earth or to me right now. The stick is merging, the frequency of the stick, the energy field is merging with my energy field, and we're interacting on a spiritual level. But it's also multidimensional and timeless. So this stick is linked to the DNA, the memory of the tree that it comes from, and that tree is linked to the DNA and the memory of the land that it is grown in, and all the other trees that preceded it. It has its own ancestral lineage. And all of this knowledge is quantum. It's contained in this, and it's contained in our bodies. It's contained in everything. So in animism, you will find that people who practice animism will honour all the elements, and we see this in shamanic practices, honouring of the water and the earth and the air and the fire and the ether, spirit, great spirit. And you will see, as a result of the worldview, a deep respect for nature, and indigenous peoples live in harmony with nature. So I think maybe that is why so many of us have been called back into these practices, animism, shamanism, different words to explain our connection to earth. I think we've been called back there collectively because this is the way forward for humanity. We need to balance our mental and cognitive and rational understandings of the way the world works and our place in it. We need to balance that with reverence and respect for the earth. So that was why I think many of us have been called to go back. So back to my question. I know I'm taking a long time to explain this, but it's a deep subject. So as I've been deepening my practice in communicating, honouring, and being with the earth and being with my body, the question's been arising in my mind. What is the relationship to that practice, to animism and the earth, sacred rituals? What is the relationship between that and ascension? Right? This word ascension now needs some unpacking, because I'm seeing it being used in collective consciousness, the mental realm, our stories and our narratives and our beliefs around things that we get to kind of share quite rapidly across the internet, right? And you can get a real gauge for what things mean in the collective. So it seems that what it means in the collective is a uplift, a spiritual uplift in consciousness, a rising in consciousness to merge with the frequencies of the fifth dimension, which is an elevated state of consciousness above what people on the planet have previously been experiencing. We have been mired for a long, long time, for eons, in the third and fourth dimensions. The third dimension being the physical, the density of the physical, and also I guess it's sort of the autopilot operations of the ego, like just survival mode. And we still see it in the world, just go to work, get your paycheck, feed your family, go to sleep, eat and be merry. That's third dimensional consciousness. Fourth dimensional consciousness is the realm of creativity and ideas and abstract thought, beliefs, how we construct our belief systems. And of course, every dimension is so interrelated. To speak of them as separate is not really accurate, but because of the way our minds operate, we have to kind of categorize and just separate out for a moment to understand. So that fourth dimension is also the space where we question. It's like a bridge of knowing and not knowing, right? A place where we almost get to play with concepts and decide what do we want to believe, and we begin to claim our power as creative beings from our consciousness, right? Understanding that what we think is what creates our reality in the world. And so these are some of the lessons of the fourth dimension. And then as we rise higher into the fifth dimension, we find a space of much more expanded state of consciousness, where duality is not so contrasted. And it's therefore, because there's less duality, less polarization, less opposition, which is what is occurring in the third and fourth dimension, harmony is the result. Harmony and unity, and access to greater states of love and light being information and wisdom coming from source. So I'm not going to go deeper into that right now. I have made a couple of videos on what I mean by fifth dimensional consciousness, which I'll post below, that you can explore if you're not familiar with those concepts. But getting back to my question. So what I was noticing about ascension and this idea of rising is that it seems to almost be the opposite push to being with the earth, because there is a tendency, let's just say, a tendency to associate fifth dimensional consciousness or rising consciousness with a kind of escaping the body, escaping any sort of physical hardships, escaping suffering. And while it's true that we do in fifth dimension, I think we untangle a lot of the causes of our suffering, which is our thoughts, and the Buddhists might say it's the only cause of our suffering. I think it's not true to say that when we go to fifth dimension we escape the third and the fourth, right? I think what's going on here is a much richer process, and it could be a mistake to eliminate the body and earth out of one's view of ascension. To sort of, I mean, look, I was doing it myself. I was imagining myself in some sort of light body with wings floating around and free of the physical vessel. And, you know, we associate the physical vessel with pain and suffering quite often. So these two ideas never really gelled with me, and I, like I said, the closest I got to thinking about it was imagining fifth dimension as being very much free of the lower densities. And that's what I want to challenge today, right? Because Spirit has actually shown me a really beautiful diagram, map of how this works. And I think it might help you too if you have also had this question of how do I integrate the earth-based practices and spirituality with ascension and these kind of very abstract ideas going on around this raising consciousness. How do I marry these two things and integrate them? Are they mutually exclusive or do they fit together? So this is what Spirit showed me. Okay, so this is the drawing that I made, and it's going to be a little bit tricky for me to do this, and I might have to photograph it, but what I want to show you first of all is this column in the middle here, this column going up. So these are the four mental bodies. Probably photograph this and pop it on the screen. It might be a bit easier. So the four mental bodies. Oh, sorry, not mental. The four dimensional bodies of Earth. Caveat. One cannot put the complicated concepts of spirit and quantum reality into a linear diagram. Okay? So this is an attempt, and it's very, very flawed, because even separating out the different layers is not correct, right? They all merge and interact with each other. So I'm limited by my ability to describe it in a drawing, is all I want to say. Okay, so let's just say, for argument's sake, to help the linear mind, we have the four realms. The physical realm, which is the body and the sensations of the body, our experiences in the body, as well as the actual interaction with the density of Earth. The leaf that I can crinkle in my fingers, yeah, the hardness of the stone, the smell of the smoke from the smudge one. These things are the physical realm. The emotional realm is our emotional response to that, how we're feeling. Does something, I might be sitting here holding this stone, does it evoke a feeling? Does it feel soothing? Yes, it does. It's beautiful white stone. Mental realm, stories, thoughts and beliefs. What story am I telling myself about this stone? Is it just something that I think I'll pop it in the pot plant because it'll look nice as decoration? Or is this a sacred object? This stone has travelled through many ceremonies, so I would say it is a sacred object. Therefore it has meaning. But this is in the mental realm. It's something I'm constructing mentally. And then you've got what I call the personal spirit realm. So this is your spiritual realm, so beyond that which is mental. It's the intuitive knowing. It's the feelings of grace. It's the feelings of connection to all that is. And that personal uplift that we have. But it is a personal realm. Right? Now, what Spirit showed me was that the typical human comfort zone of experience is mainly the mental and emotional realms. This is on earth at this time, the mental and emotional realms. So we're very comfortable and we're trained really to focus on the mental realm, focus on thought, reasoning, meaning, story, belief. And our heads are very, very busy, right? And we're constantly bombarded with mental stimulus. So our comfort zone tends to be the mental realm and also the emotional realm, and this will vary in different people. I mean, some people might not be comfortable at all with their emotional realm, but a typical human being can express a wide range of emotions and is familiar with that realm as everyday part of their experience. Now, going down into the physical realm, there's a Spirit showed a sort of a flaw there, a limit of the comfort zone. So people will feel their bodies, obviously, and sensations, but there's a lot of disconnection from the body and dishonoring of the body. This is why we have so much abuse of the body that goes on the planet. I mean, I used to do it too, drinking heaps and just not taking care of the body. And not because we're not really tuning into the body and the body's needs. If we were deeper into that realm of consciousness ourselves, if we were more connected to it, then we would honor the body and we would pay attention to all of the little signs to help us heal or balance out what's needed. So this again, it's very typical. I'm not talking about you necessarily, just a typical human being. And then there's a sort of a ceiling up the top there. So there's the physical, you can see it doesn't go deep into the physical, and there's the ceiling for the spiritual. So again, much like the physical, we're only just touching what it means to have a personal spiritual practice and be connected in that way. And if we're fully into that, if we're fully experiencing our personal spiritual realm, we will feel really present at all times. And we will honor everything that comes our way. And we will be in states of gratitude and seeing the bigger lessons and appreciating the higher perspective. So again, there's not that many humans who are operating in that all the time, and so there's a kind of a limit to what you can experience. And you can see here that there is the physical realm is often the realm of suffering, because a lot of our suffering on the planet has to do with physical suffering, right? So when we're in pain and feeling just discomfort, we can have a very uncomfortable emotion, and it will present in the physical body as, anxiety in the stomach churning away, as not being able to sleep, insomnia. It will present as just a restlessness perhaps, or maybe lethargy. So that would be like a physical representation of depression. So there's quite a bit of suffering down here in the physical realm, and I think that's why probably people try to avoid it. But as you can see from this, the depths to which we go in the lower density realms, the physical realm and the emotional realm, and deeper even, corresponds to the heights that we can achieve in states of bliss. How high can we get? So if we're not prepared to go deeply into pain, then we are limited by how high we can get expanded in our consciousness, because this way, going up is expansion. Now, going down is not expansion until you get deep, deep, deep. Then it expands again, and I'm going to show you how it all connects. But going down is going to feel more like the opposite, like going into a sort of a birth canal of experience, like deep, like a cave. Think of some metaphors for this lower part here would be a cave or a womb, or being buried in the earth. There's many rituals in indigenous cultures, I think, that where they bury people in the earth as part of them helping them to connect to this. So I'll go back to that in a minute. This is quite a complex drawing, so I'm going to have to speak to all different parts of it, really. Okay, so this is these four here are the personal experiences, but then we have what I call transpersonal spirituality, or what my guide showed me is transpersonal spirituality. And once we've busted out of our own egoic personal spirituality and we go beyond the personal, we begin to get into the ascension realms. And I wrote here, deep experiences of being one with the cosmos. Deep experiences. This is where we have bliss, God consciousness, and love and light. Love and light, like pouring in. So let's just say that is a pictorial representation of this idea of ascension that so many people are aiming for and wanting and desiring right now. And there's a reason for that, because you came here to activate that. You came here to step into the fullness of that and be like a flower opening up. You can see there, it's like a flower. And there's no accident. This is a column representing the chakra column and the spinal column of the human being, and the central column of light on the etheric realm that we all are. So this is the personal experience. And then as it opens up, it becomes a toroidal field. And you'll see here that the energy, the light energy, is spilling down around here, and it's spilling down around here, and it joins up at the base and flows through. Okay, so it actually makes like an infinity sign too, you can see. Now, down here, right, at the bottom, this is ascension through transpersonal spirituality, and this is animism, transpersonal spirituality, right? It's a different expression of the same thing. And Spirit helped me there. I wrote deep experiences of being one with the earth. And this is where these shamanic practices come in, the callings that people are getting, I believe, and myself included, to go really deep with our earth, to commune, to find, to use feathers as coded keys to activation, and stones and plants and the weather patterns, and to see everything as a living imbibed spirit. This is animism. And the deeper you go, what I've started to notice is that you get to the same place as when you rise in consciousness, right? And often the path to this is through meditation. It's a denial, if you like, you could put it that way, a denial of the physical experience, because when you meditate, you shut your eyes, you try to still your mind, and you're not present with your body at a certain point in meditation. You sort of become one with all that is, in a way that's not separated from the body, but is beyond the body. Whereas this way, the pathway into this deep state of consciousness is through the body, through being so deeply present with everything that is going on. It's like, and I've glimpsed these states of consciousness at times, and there is no time. There is no time in that realm, and you can literally see how things are alive, and you can interact with the world in a way that it is speaking to you at all times. The pathway that the shamanic cultures take to get to these deep places, this deep experience of being one with the earth, are things like vision quests and plant medicines as well. Being like a really wonderful expression of how to commune with the earth is through taking the plant, and then many other rituals that people who wish to deepen this relationship will go through in initiations. Right? Now the thing is, it takes you to the same place. It takes you to bliss, God consciousness, and love and light, and it is the toroidal field, so the cycle of energy. Right? And up here you can see it sort of meeting in the diagram. It says ascension embodied. Ascension embodied. So we have ascension, which, as I said before, a lot of people think of it as almost being without the body, just love and light, being in some sort of state of love and light. But we have embodied it. So we are deeply connected to our experience of being in a human vessel and being on the planet at the same time. And that is the magic. That is the relationship between animism and ascension, or you could also say between earth and heaven. Now, the Spirit wanted to show me when Spirit drew that bracket, right? It's sort of like these lines represent like a limit of consciousness. If someone is only willing to go so deep into their physical experience, they can only rise so high in their spiritual experiences because the two are connected. And so here is another example of, I guess, Spirit called it an ascension attempt. Right, now imagine that there's a line there, so just ignore the bottom part for the moment of this diagram. There's a line there, the person is trying to go up, it's called the ascension attempt. But, in brackets, denial or escape from lower frequencies. So we do see this a little bit. I have seen it, I've probably been, probably have done this myself, where I want to ascend and be in states of love and light all the time. So I deny my negative emotions. I deny my physical pain or my physical needs. I whitewash things. I say, feeling sadness, that's just an old 3D experience that, we don't need anymore because we're going to be in fifth dimension. I don't know if the fifth dimension is a place of like perfect happiness all the time. I think it probably must be. We all have this almost like a programmed in concept of what heaven is, right? Which we could also say is the ascended realms. But that could also be a huge psyop. We don't know. We've been so messed with the human psyche that we do have to question things and just admit we don't know. But I do know that at this stage in our journey, and this is the message that Spirit is giving here, is that denial of the physical realm, denial of the so-called negative emotions or the pain body or the things we just have to go through on earth, denial of that is potentially a block, you see. And if you don't allow yourself to go deep enough into your experience of being in the physical and on the earth, you're not going to be able to rise as high as you would perhaps like. So Spirit's saying you can get a certain way, but that the rest of the way will be blocked to you. Okay. You can feel into this for yourselves. This is just the message that Spirit gave me in this diagram, which helps me. If it's not true for you, that's totally okay. You've got to find your own path. So the same can be said if you're in this vehicle on this earth and all you're doing is focusing on seeking physical pleasure or having sensory experiences here, then you're going to go quite deep potentially, but you won't be able to rise. There's also a block for you in the opposite direction. So the willingness to experience both the earth realm and the higher states of spiritual consciousness, the deeper you can go into the earth experience, the higher you can rise into the heaven experience. And maybe that's it. Maybe that's what I've got to share. I feel like it's such a complicated subject, but sometimes these diagrams can really help me to just integrate it, put them together, because that is, I think, a hallmark of our fifth dimensional consciousness, is that we're actually able to handle paradoxes, right? And we're able to be multidimensional, so to handle many, many truths at once. And this is multidimensionality right here, this whole diagram, holding all of these different layers of consciousness in the one beingness. I can't just say body because it's more than body, it's a light body as well. And it's quantum, it's connected to celestial realms and quantum lives and the entire Akash of the human collective. So, wow! We are so complex, really. But we can hold ironically, simplicity and complexity together. We can hold darkness and light together. We can hold earth and heaven together. We can hold ascension and animism together. We can integrate what appears to be opposites into this beautiful, harmonious whole. And I think that's what we're here to do. I really do. I truly believe that. Well, I believe at the moment. If you saw my last video, you'll understand why I added that addendum, because beliefs, hold them lightly. Hold them really lightly, right? We are only just waking up to who we really are. And it's very, very magical, but we must allow ourselves to be children and to have that innocence and humility of not knowing. Let that be beautiful. Let that be okay. So in honor of this teaching, this sacred teaching, I'm just going to drum a little now and invite you to listen and enjoy. Deepest gratitude for the help we received today, spiritual guidance and assistance from Gaia, beings, the elementals, my own ancestors, guardian beings and angels, of all the people who've listened, all those who've connected in. And thanks and gratitude. Spirals of creation, spirals of life. Bring our dreaming to perfect life. We connect to the earth, we connect to the sun. In service to all, we have come, we have come. And thanks to the holy sound of the drum. May all beings be free. Sending you lots and lots of love and gentle kisses.